Let's see what's up with the quality of the stream. Is it all running? And then after I see it there, we can hit the road. Yeah, it's there. We got it. So, sweet. Let me switch this off. It's no, it's here, and I need to just remove this image from here, and that's all cool. All right, so today's lecture is called Studio Flow equals Signal Flow, and there is a reason why I decided to call it like that. Yeah, the other day, Sirius got angry with me. He was playing with Ableton, and then he got angry with me and just closed the computer and just throw. He was like, pff, pff. It's like, this too, man. So, anyways, today's lecture is called Studio Flow equals Signal Flow, and there's a reason why it's called like that, because you know, in the movies, there is like this scene of, like, I don't know, a guy and a girl going on a date, and then I don't know, the girl wants or the guy, whatever, just name it, or lesbian, whatever, I don't give a shit, but I'm just putting it in the heterosexual context. The girl is like expecting him to be cool and to act quickly, you know, and to be really great, and the guy's clumsy and starts knocking everything off, and it turns out the mood or the vibe. So when you have an artist here and you don't know where your signal is, I mean, you will really kill the creativity if somebody's ready to play, you know, and it's ready to go, and you're like, wait, I just don't know where the signal is. And then the whole thing dies. You know, the studio has to be a creative thing that moves really fast. And the only way to do this is to become a master in something really boring, which is, and that's going to happen a lot. You will see it, like, I mean, you need to master boring things, unfortunately, but this thing that you need to become a master of is knowing where your signal is. And so we're going to see a quick presentation, and then we're going to just make a lot of like examples and exercise right here, and we're going to do them all in Ableton Live, and you will see that this has nothing to do with any computer program or nothing. It's more about something else. But before we start, I wanted to, well, I mean, of course, I want to just like start with this idea that the recording studio is an instrument the size of a house. So it really is an instrument. The whole thing, you need to see it like a guitar or a keyboard, or the whole thing. For me, it's an instrument, and the way I use it is like that. I also want to identify the concept of audio signal flow, and today I think you will learn a couple of things that you have never thought about audio engineering that will open you very deep and professional career perspectives that maybe you have never thought about before. So identify the possible scope that signal flow can have. I mean, how deep can signal flow go? And further your knowledge on alternative career paths. Maybe there are some alternative career paths that you didn't know it existed, and then you're going to find it out today. So let's do this fast so we can then go and practice. So we're going to meditate about studio flow. We're going to meditate about what is signal flow, and then we're going to talk about CD playback example, single vocalist example, band signal flow example, and broadcast performance. Like imagine like a BBC concert transmission of a show in Glastonbury or something, like, or whatever, Pierre Bicanal, Stas Mikhailov concert that I know that you all always would like to see. By the way, I don't know these people, I'm just joking, but whatever, maybe you like them. But the other day with Foundation, I was like that, like, okay, let's talk about music that you all hate. Let's talk about Kirkorov, and everybody's like, we love Kirkorov, and I was like, okay, sorry, sorry for you, friend. Sorry, no, I'm kidding, but anyways. Yeah, I don't understand those nuances. Maybe they're like a part of the culture because babushkas hear this and then everybody's like a joke, or maybe you love it. I don't know, whatever. Just like I cannot joke about it, unfortunately. So, okay. Studio workflow. Look, I found a really cool video. I want us to hear like a couple of minutes of this. This is the engineer who recorded Random Access Memories of Daft Punk. And not only recorded it, but was also the producer of that record. So, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like definitely not a kid, right? So, that's pretty cool. Let's have a listen. His name, it's impossible. Guzowski. His name is John Guzowski. So, let's hear. I think I really need to turn up the volume now. guy, funny looking guy. Sorry, this is all about this computer. So you see, this guy was given the task, the amazing task. He was given the amazing task of doing the latest Daft Punk album, and the first thing they wanted was a studio tight 70s type of disco sound. And so he thought, oh, this is what I was telling you, that the studio is an instrument. You know, he was like, okay, I go-boat. You know what he means when he said that? I go-boat. And I don't think you know this because it's very technical, specific word. I go-boat the drums with blankets. So this means that he made a little house around the drum kit, and he put blankets there. So a go-boat, that thing that you see there, like that red panel, la bushka. It's in English. It's called a go-boat for some reason. I don't know why. No, it's not a. It's not a sound trap really. It's more like an acoustic barrier, I would call it. La bushka, correct. And he just told you that because he wanted to have options. He go-bought the drum kit with some blankets that he can remove, because maybe, and you will see, he will continue developing this idea. Check it out. I'll go. I will pay for that click very much. Because this is very lame and this computer sucks. I'll tell you a bit of what he says, and we can move on faster so we can practice. Basically, he says that he made this construction with a blanket, and then what's up? Gobo, G-O-B-O, gobo, gobo. So he made construction with a blanket, but he left an opening towards the room, so he can record close mics. Blin, it's just like so much better to hear it from him. Let me give it a second chance, because I mean I know this sucks and it's really lame, but let's try. So he made it really dead in there for the close mics. Like, so there were microphones close to the drum kit, and he made a little capsule that isolated the reflections coming back to the mics, so everything can be very dry. But he said that he needed options, and you will see when you're running studio sessions, I mean, you really don't know what your client is going to throw at you or what you're going to need, so you need to make a setup that can kind of allow you to have but options if you need to change your opinion really quickly or something, or do something. So check out. So you will see. You will see. So I think this video is super interesting, and we can watch it all. But I put it there so you go and check it out later because it's real. I mean, did you like that album, the Random Access Memories by Daft Punk, or you don't care about this record? You know which one I'm talking about? Ah, you don't. Okay, you all don't know about this album. Like, do it, man. Sit down and check it out. Like, I think this is one of the most important records of the last decade, by far. It doesn't matter which genre you like. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. Like, this album is one of the most important records. I really thought when we started listening to this, I thought that because this album is so legendary, like, or so important, I think, in the history of music, it's kind of like saying if I tell you Abbey Road by the Beatles, like you kind of have heard that this album exists. Like I really think that Random Access Memories by Daft Punk is definite. I mean, it won like 10 Grammys or something, like, and I mean, and the list of collaborators was insane. Like, was Pharrell Williams was there, Giorgio Moroder was there, and etc. There is a whole huge bunch, and the magic thing of it is that Daft Punk is a electronic band, and they did it all live with instruments. So it's all like drum kit and bass guitars and guitars, and so it was really shocking album. It came out in 2012, I remember. Yeah, it's amazing. So I really encourage you to go, and I mean, you really should, and it should be a part of your musical education. You really should go and listen like 2 Daft Punk songs from another record, and let's sit down and listen to that record, you know, and try to put yourself in the imagination of the challenge of making that and what it means, and then listen to this, and because he's gonna tell you the story of how it was recorded, how it was mixed, and all of that. So that's pretty cool. The other thing that I put you here is to check it out if my computer allows me to play a YouTube video. It's I mean, it's a session of radio in the studio. It's just like we don't even need to hear it. Like we can hear it, but yeah, check that beauty, man. Check that beauty. Like I will never get tired of this. So I mean, you have a nice. Let's pump up the volume to see what's going on there. I think this was around the bands. Everything is ready to go in any moment. Like, oh. Just. And that thing wrongs. Like, let's play some keywords now. Stop. Yeah, come to the slides and check it out. Yeah, and I also put you here. This one I really want to watch it all because I especially wanna. I mean, I really when I give these lectures of studio, I really want to inspire the ladies in particular because the studio world is a bit like. I mean, I don't think it's like purposefully male dominated. It's like women are not allowed here or something. I don't think it's like that. It just happens statistically that it works out that way. You know, less females are interested in this. If you disagree with me, say it. But that's kind of how I see it. And Silvia Massi, it's a super inspiration for me because she's a mega badass sound engineer that just like, and she produced really heavy stuff. I have talked to you a lot about her, but I really want us to see this because my goal of showing you these little videos is just so you feel this idea that I told you that a studio is an instrument, you know? And so this one I really want to see it a bit longer because she will show a lot of things that she conceived for this recording, and it's really cool what she was thinking. she really connected a guitar amp through a light bulb. Like, I mean, she made a connection so the guitar sound goes through a actual light bulb. That was just a random noise. So the sound is going through the lamp. It switches on when you play. And actually she changed the light bulbs and it sounds different. Like if you put like, yeah. She wants to connect it to the Christmas lights. And I think that in here, because this is not Silvia Massi's studio, this was in the UK. She has her own studio in America, but she was flown to the UK to record something, and you saw a little amplifier there. The little amplifier there. I'm gonna skip a little bit this part. If I hope I don't fuck it up. Let's hope it works. I wanted to show you. So you see his signal is running through 3 amps, like. So now try to imagine this session. This session must have maybe, I would say, 40 channels running individually at the same time. And where's the signal? That's a question that she's asking a lot for 40 channels, right? Like, where's the signal? I mean, I'm going through from this. I mean, the guitarist is playing, then it's running through the amp, then I'm sending that signal to a light bulb, then it's coming back to somewhere, and then so all of this is signal flow. If you don't have the signal flow down, you cannot build this, because you will be like, where's the signal? Where's the signal? And you will get lost very much. Two is like, she later explains, for example, in this session. In the session 2, she did something that I really love, which is like sometimes when you record drums, if you have a piano in the studio, like you put a block of concrete like on the foot of the piano, so you are pressing the sustain pedal of the piano all the time, and then you put inside the piano a couple of mics, so whenever the drummer plays, like you get this reverb like from the piano. Yeah, like, and she talks about that too, and it's really amazing. So, I mean, my goal was that to show you like, hey, you cannot develop this if you don't know where your signal is. Like, yeah. Which song? No, I don't know, but we can figure it out. Like, if we check it out carefully, and I'm sure that if we Google like a song with light bulb with Silvia Massi, we will get there. So now we're almost done with the theoretical part, and then we can go on. So look, this is straight on the Wikipedia definition, because this thing doesn't require any special research. It's really simple. So what do I mean by audio signal flow? Audio signal flow is the path an audio signal takes from source to output. So what's my signal flow right now? Do you know it? Can you say it?
Microphone, no, computer, no, microphone, audio card, computer.
Okay, and then like internally rooted inside my computer, YouTube, for example, you see like the whole thing continues digitally, like, and also it's like I'm making a split of the signal inside my computer to YouTube and to Google Meet. So I have pretty simple, but I mean I'm the source. Yeah, and the speakers, exactly. So I'm the source, and then there's a mic, there's a cable, there's a sound card, there's a computer. So if there is an error, where can that error be? Can be the mic, can be the cable, can be the sound card, can be the cable from the sound card to the computer, can be the computer. How do you know where is the error? Well, that's a very big deal in sound engineering. So the content of signal flow is closely related to the concept of audio gain staging. This is really important, and to be honest, like one of the cool things about this course is that it helps me to solidify some terms that I don't usually use. So where can I change the gain of this microphone? It's a very obvious question. In the sound card. So that's a stage where I can change the gain. So that's what it's called in audio engineering. It's called gain staging. Places where you can change the gain. Now, for example, this button is a gain stage too, because I can put this gain to 0. Yeah, and it's just it's not an op, it just has a 100% or 0%. Yeah, well, it's just disconnecting the circuit. It's not a gate. It would be too complex to put a gate here. It's just like literally disconnecting the power. Like, no, it's not correct to say that. It's not a gate. It's just a switch. Like, it's literally, this is not a gate, because a gate has a threshold. A gate has a ratio. Okay, I get your point, but I would still not call it a gate. I would call it a switch, literally. Yeah, I don't mean to be an asshole, but I just want us to use the proper terms. So there is something called audio gain stages. So each component in the signal flow can be thought of as a gain stage. So, for example, in that signal flow that we're thinking about, one of the stages of that signal flow is this switch, actually. Because, I mean, it's like kind of like there is microphone, then a cable here that connects to the switch. And if the switch is problematic, then that can stop my signal flow. And maybe the problem is the switch. And I don't know. And what happens, and you will see when you're running sessions, it's like, all right, you plug everything, 40 channels. You sit down and look at the meters. Oh, fuck, where's channel 17? It's like, pfft, who knows what the fuck is the problem? Is it the mic? Is it the cable? Is it this guitar? Is it the DI box? Is it the pool? Is it the console? Is it the preamp? Is it, who knows? And you really need to get good at this, because what happens to me is like, I mean, nowadays, after I've been in so many situations, I kind of like can figure out those problems in 5 minutes. Before, it used to eat maybe 3 hours of my sessions. It can be, and especially in DTH, which is not a studio that is so like solid, you know. Who knows? It can be that the Zavod in this day has some like electrical phase. It really happens sometimes, and then the whole electricity of the Zavod is wrong, and then the whole thing sounds wrong, and it's really complicated. But anyways, so again, in audio engineering, a gain stage is a point during the audio signal flow that the engineer can make adjustments to the level. A fader or a mixing console or a DAW. So each component of the signal flow can be thought of as a gain stage. We just discussed that. I mean, you can see like this is a gain stage, this is a gain stage. Inside the DAW there is a gain stage. In a typical home stereo system, the signal flow is usually super short and simple, just a couple of components. Now, when you're in a recording studio or a performing venue, obviously the signal flow can be quite complicated with a large number of components, and I started making this, like, increase the size of the font on purpose, which may cause the signal to fail to reach its desired output. And that's a big problem, because you have a guy there sitting, and that's why I gave you this example of a date between a man and a woman, or man and a man, or woman and a woman, whatever you want, and it's like, hey, impress me, and the guy's like, wait, I'll be right back, and then it's like 40 minutes later, and it's like, okay, guy, like I'm tired, I'm gonna go home. So you're gonna kill the vibe if you don't get this right, and it's really important not to kill the vibe. Okay, now check it out. You have, of course, you know what feedback is. You have all grab a guitar, I guess, one day of your life and put it in front of a mic or some of a speaker, and you have heard this beep, you know, right? Right? Something like that. I mean, you all know what feedback is. Now, imagine that this system, the system that I'm holding in my hand, has an input and an output. So it's very visual for you that you see the input here kind of and the output here, but you're not thinking about what's happening inside this device. And if it's bad, it can happen that part of the output goes back to the input. You know, because just a wrong cable, just the bad connection, just a shitty transistor can produce that effect. and that feedback can blow up to infinity and be very loud, or it can be something really small that you don't really perceive, but if you analyze the signal, you will realize that the feedback is there. Correct. It can happen inside the mic. It can happen inside the sound card. It can happen in... I am using this program called Loopback. Like, for example, only last night, I was hearing some... like, what I was listening to? I think I was listening to some Square Pusher in my computer at home, and I was like, what's that comp filtering? And then I switch up Loopback, the program that I used to stream, and then I realized that because I installed the new Pro Tools, some software inside my computer kind of changed the internal routing of the computer, and now when I have Loopback, I have internal feedback, and so the output of Loopback is feeding back in, and so I hear like a little bit like as if it's out of phase. And I have to now, when I mix, I need to switch off Loopback, which is a major problem for me because I mix online. So whatever, I'll have to sort it out. But I want to tell you that feedback can happen in the mic, in the cable, in the sound card, inside the computer, and it's a very big deal. And you're gonna have to, and that's why I'm really happy that we're seeing this course of развитие технического слуха at the same time as this, because in развитие технического слуха we will develop a lot of techniques on how to pay attention to things and say like, what is wrong with that? And you're gonna have to do that a lot in order to catch feedback, to catch different problems. So if the device is amplifying the signal, you see, if the device is amplifying the signal, then the amplified output will be feedback into the input for some reason, a bad connection or something, where it will be amplifying again and then sent to the output. Of course, this can go to infinity. And you have seen it sometimes. You put your microphone in Ableton with your computer, you know, like the mic of the computer, and then it just go to feedback, right? It has happened to you a lot. And I mean, what's happening there is like Ableton is trying to hear your voice, and then it's sending that to the output of the speakers that is coming back on the microphone, and it's going to infinity. That can happen a lot in a studio too. And you will see that when we work together, I keep the speakers off 99% of the times. And in a previous course, there is a student from the previous year called Denis Siganov, who was always joking to me about that. It's like, you're so paranoid. Oh, you're so paranoid. Because he's a bit like, I don't know, arrogant maybe as a student or something. He thinks he knows everything. And I was like, okay, when you blow up a pair of speakers, we will speak. Like, you will see. Because you don't know. When you're working sometimes. Yeah, go ahead. Da?
I had exactly this problem.
Sure.
I forgot to turn off the speakers and connected it. Then it's just
Yes.
it was super loud and
Yeah, and sometimes you just go maybe to buy a coffee and come back, and I mean, it has happened to me that, imagine, it has happened to me that I go to buy a coffee and come back, and I forgot to switch off the amp of the guitar for some reason. It's okay, it's not a problem. And the guitar started feeding back. Sometimes if you leave a guitar on the studio, on the floor, and when I came back 3 hours later, there was a feedback there running for 3 hours, like, you know, and the neighbors were like, and luckily I had the speakers off. I mean, if not, that signal was going to go on the speakers too, so etc. Yeah, I always switch them off. So, okay, let's see a CD player example. So, I mean, this is a signal flow of a CD player. And now, if you're going to call yourself a sound engineer or any serious person inside the audio world, you need to use this terminology. It's like, what's a signal flow? So, a CD player is connected to a home audio system. So, the first component in the signal flow is the CD player. The output of the CD player is connected to an input or a receiver, maybe a amp or something. And I'm going to skip. You can read the white part later. But like you see, that's why I put it like purple, orange, purple, orange, purple. So the different stages, like purple, CD player, first step. Then the output of the CD player is connected to a receiver, to a amp, for example. Then in the amp, you're going to have several options like CD. Okay, great. And then the output of the amplifier is connected to speaker, so that there is another point in the chain. And that's the other word you're going to have to use a lot, chain. Like there is another point in the audio chain. So this audio chain has CD, amp, internal routing inside amp, because the amp has many inputs, and then output of amp, which go to speakers. So all of these points where the signal is kind of transporting from one medium to another or from one device to another can give you problems. So when you have a single vocalist recording signal flow, like, I mean, imagine it's you at home with a mic. It's kind of like this. It's what we're talking right now. Well, this is a case in which there is a preamp and an EQ and a compressor and a sound card connected. So you have a singer, you have a mic, you have a preamp, you have an EQ, you have a compressor, and after the compressor, you go to an analog to digital converter. So that would be something kind of like this. This mic connected to this preamp. By the way, the next lecture, that is theoretical will be about preamps. So we will explain what the hell is this and why do you need it. But so you know. So when I connect a mic to here, imagine that the output of the preamp will go to an EQ. And then the output of the EQ will go to a compressor. And then the output of a compressor will go to the sound card. So now all of these points become places where I can have a problem with the signal. And if your singer is going to start singing there, you're like, whoa, what can be the problem right now? And you will develop an algorithm in your head of what is the most probable problem. I mean, because the connections in between the preamp and the EQ and the EQ and the compressor, usually these connections are not moved. So they are the least likely point of problem. But it can be that just a fuse blew up inside the EQ and you're like, fuck, is it the mic, is it the cable, is it the... So I will show you many ways of finding those problems. So this is a basic band. I'm sorry that it's so small, but this is very important that we see it, because it's very similar to the studio setup, and I really care that you see it so we can kind of understand something. You can ignore this. Let's just look at a singer alone, and that's what you will have to do in your practice when you come here on your own. There is a singer, a mic, a preamp, an EQ, for example. And then that thing, actually, this is kind of how it is in a console, not in a sound card situation. But anyways, it kind of works. That thing is split in two because you need the singer to listen to herself or himself there. So the reason why I think this diagram was important for us is to understand that, you see, there is a copy of the signal being made. A copy of the signal goes to the recording, a copy of the signal goes to the headphones in the studio. Your practice will be to sit down here, make sure that you get a signal into Ableton, and then make sure that the person that is in there listens to what is happening in Ableton, and that there is no feedback, and that everybody's comfortable and you can work. So that's the basic signal flow of a band. Now, check it out. This is what I meant in the introduction of the lecture, like I wanted to push a bit your knowledge of sound engineering and what options are there for the career and stuff, because this is really interesting, and I met a lot of people who do this job, and it's really amazing. Check this out. When you have... Remember that I worked in that Zemfira show in Olimpijski, right? And it was a transmission of Pierre Canal. So we had like the sound of that the audience listens to. We have the sounds that the musicians listens to, and we have the sounds that goes to the live stream in TV. So imagine you have a singer, it's Zemfira, and you have a mic, great. And then there is a thing called a splitter, and a splitter splits the signal for the front of house. The front of house is the name of the console of the guy who is making, or the lady who is making the head sound for the whole auditory, so people can hear it. Then there is a split of the signal that is going to the monitor world. Then there is a split of the signal that is going to the broadcast truck. Then there is a split of the signal that is going to the recording truck, because usually there is a truck that sends the signal out to the feed, and there's another truck that is recording, like literally a truck. And then there is another, sometimes it happens that the musicians want to hear backstage what's happening. Like imagine that it's a music festival, and then you want, like, I don't know, there is Dica Emiata, and on the backstage, like, the musicians are there chilling, and you want them to be able to hear the performance of the other bands. So sometimes there is a backstage feed, so everybody can hear what's happening there. So now, this is really cool, and this is where I wanted to introduce you a new world inside sound engineering. This is a case, sorry that it's so small for you. This is a case, just so you imagine something really cool. This is, now we are looking only on the front of house, and in sound engineering you're going to hear this word a lot, foch, and with Artoma Matuni you're going to hear this word a lot, foch, the front of house. And actually in Russian people say the foch too, like referring in English. Like the front of house is going to have, like, imagine you have, I told you before, there is a singer, a microphone, and then that signal goes to the front of house. So now we're going to focus 1 second on the front of house. So the front of house already has a microphone signal, and it's sending an auxiliar. When I say an auxiliar, do you know what I mean? Imagine a bus in Ableton. Like, how do you call this in Ableton? It's called a bus. Send and return in Ableton. Yeah, imagine like in Ableton, you're like, you have the track in Ableton, and then there is like this knob which is like send A. So in audio engineering, this is really called, these are the same words. A bus, B-U-S, a bus, or an auxiliar, the same, or a send and a return. I'll explain you later why it's called a send and a return. There's a reason. That was the original name, send and return. but it doesn't matter right now. So you're sending an auxiliary, which is the same. Like imagine you're in Ableton, you have your main sound that you're hearing, and you decide to send output A to the reverb. Now, if your sound card has 10 outputs, you can say output A goes to, if I turn up the knob A in my Ableton live track, that thing is going to go only to output one of the cons of the sound card that I have. You understand what I mean? So when you have your front of house signal, and you can send it to the monitoring so the musicians can hear themselves on the stage. And here's what I wanted to introduce you today. And then you see this to send this signal to something called the system equalizer. Because when you are seeing a show, a big concert, that signal is split in three. Like the signal that you hear, it's a combination of the high frequencies, the mid frequencies, and the low frequencies. And like each speaker, there is a set of speakers that are playing different range. It's literally like grabbing an EQ and cutting all the low end and putting it in the speakers. Then grabbing an EQ, cutting all the mid, the high end and the low end and putting it in the speakers. And then leaving only the low end. Have you been to a big show? Anybody here? Everybody of you have been to a big show? Have you noticed you're looking at the stage, and then there are like some subwoofers on the floor, and then you see a huge array of speakers on top of you. So the signal that is arriving to the subwoofer is not all the signal, it's only the low end. It's not like the subwoofer has a EQ that cuts the high end from it. No. There is a person who decided which frequency is going to arrive to the low end, and that depends on the stadium you are. It depends on the physical characteristics of the location where you are. That job is called the systems engineer. It's a pretty cool job. I mean, I know some cool people who does it. There is a teacher in the school. His name is Sergei Praskuryakov. He will teach actually in the second semester to you guys. He teaches audio acoustics. And so he is a systems engineer. So he's a person who decides, this is a Olimpijski, so the subwoofer the crossover point, this is how it's called in sound engineering. So it means the place where I'm going to make an EQ cut. It's going to be 100 hertz. It's like, why? Well, because this venue is like that. So, etc. So that's called a system engineer. So, okay, you have a front of house, and then there is a split of the signal into high, middle, and low. And then those signals are sent into the speakers. One time I was working in a show with a band from Washington, from USA. The band is called Dead Meadow, and we were working on a show in Agglomerat. And in the middle of the sound check, something started sounding weird. And we were like, what the fuck is going on? And the problem was that when you're working in such a big show, after there is a split of frequencies that are going to go to the speakers, it means that you have three amplifiers, like an amplifier for the high frequencies, an amplifier for the middle frequencies, and an amplifier for the low frequencies. Like the amplifier of the middle range blew up. And that's a super extreme case of signal flow. It's like, what the hell is the problem? Like, is it the mic? Is it the cables? Is it the splitter? Because now we have a splitter. Is it the console? Is it the amplifiers of the high or the mid or the low end? And then you have to check all of these systems. So I just wanted to joke a little bit, and this is the end. So this is a singer, right? I have a singer. By the way, this is Woodstock 69. And actually, it's really cool. I mean, it's like, if you notice this image later on with attention, you will see, like, it's like Faniera, the stage. I mean, it's like obviously another era. You see, like, some crappy symbol there. Like, there are no mics here. It's just like, so super, super ancient. By the way, my mom, my mom was living in California at the time, and she got a phone call from a friend, like, let's go to Woodstock. And she was like, nah, I have to study. And she didn't went. And I was like, but she said, like, back then it just nobody knew that it was gonna be such a legendary thing. I mean, it was kind of like whatever, another show, and then it turned out to be something super legendary. But yeah, she missed the opportunity. She could have been there. So this is a splitter, and so what happens is, like, you remember, like, back there, like when you see there in the live room, there is like a box where you can connect XLRs. So this is that box, and you connect XLRs here, and then you see, like, this cable, huge cable, will go to the truck that is like the broadcast truck, and this cable, so it will carry the multi-track session to the front of house or onto the truck of broadcasting. No, because if it would be LAN, there will be a conversion process. There will be an analog to digital conversion, and the game of sound engineering is to minimize the amount of times when that happens. Actually, in here, it only happened once inside here. But if you put, there are some stage boxes for concerts that are just like a circle like this, and you can connect a whole bunch of XLRs there, and then the output is an Ethernet cable, literally. That thing, it would be terrible for the signal. You don't care on the monitoring level because it's like whatever. Or maybe this is not such a high fidelity show and you don't care so much, but that's something that people try to avoid in general. I don't know. Look, I'm not so knowledgeable on live sound technology, so maybe this thing is already so advanced that people are doing this in all the shows. I don't know. But in the studio, it's an absolute never. You will never in the history of the humanity doing that in the studio. I mean, you should receive a visit by, I don't know, the Ministry of Sound, using that joke. I don't know if you understand that joke better, because there is a label called Ministry of Sound, right? And then your studio should be burned if you try to do that. But I mean, that's just my opinion. So anyways, there is a splitter. So I was kind of making you the signal flow, like the singer is singing, the input goes to the splitter, then this thing splits into console, TV broadcast, whatever. And then there is a system on the side of the stage where you can choose like where the signals are going. This is the stage manager's perspective. Each one of these positions is a job. And it's a job that a musician can have. It's a job that any of you can have in the future. It's really interesting stuff, seriously. And these guys tour. I mean, with Zemfira, the systems engineer of the audio company, they were on tour with us. Like in America, we were working with one sound company, and the system engineer, his name was Chang, a guy from Thailand. And he was a super important part of the project. Like you cannot have a live show without a systems engineer. And then, I mean, this can go to the front of house. Obviously, that's like a console, and then you see the concert, obviously. And then there is a copy to the monitors. So there's a second console. You have not seen this because you have never played. Maybe you have in a show of this size. But usually there is a console for the front of house, and there is a console for the monitors. And these are absolutely different mixes. Ilya Garkhadaski works a lot like a monitor engineer, a lot. And also front of house, but he has done monitors for a lot of people. And that's a kind of like a different job, the monitor engineer. It's not the same guy as the front of house. And then you have something like a broadcast truck, which receives this signal and then sends the signal to the world. Great. So that's all the theoretical part of this lecture. What follows is to go and discuss a little bit of a practice there. So I am going to switch off the stream because this is going to be useless and I don't want to pay attention to this. So whoever is